The Navy SEAL classroom hummed with low whisper smirks tucked into murmurs, laughter carefully concealed. At the front of the room stood a woman no one had anticipated. Petite, wire-rimmed glasses balanced on her nose, pressed khakis instead of camouflage. She looked more like a university lecturer than someone meant to instruct America's most lethal warriors. "Cute professor," one recruit muttered. "Wrong hall, ma'am," another snickered. Even the class leader, 6'4" Merrick Davenport, leaned back with his arms crossed, a sneer cutting across his face. "We're here to fight," his posture said, "not sit through psychology lectures." They had no idea. Within weeks, those same men would be stunned into silence. They would see the scars tracing her arms, watch her dismantle their best operators in seconds, and they would snap to attention when the commander finally revealed the truth. This wasn't an academic. This was a warfighter one whose call sign was whispered across battlefields. Coronado's Naval Special Warfare Training Command reeked of sweat and salt water. Recruits limped into the classroom after another brutal obstacle course, only to halt mid-step. At the front stood Dr. Elaine Thorne, petite auburn hair pulled into a tight bun. No uniform, no gear. Just calm composure as she arranged papers on the desk. Confused glances rippled through the room. Training Officer River cleared his throat. "Effective immediately, 4 hours a week will be dedicated to asymmetric warfare theory." The silence shattered into muffled chuckles. Two men forged in mud and fire, theory sounded like weakness. Davenport spoke for them. "With respect, Mom, the enemy doesn't care about theories when bullets are flying." Thorne's gaze lingered on him, calm and sharp. "Trainee Davenport, show me your room-clearing procedure." He moved with practiced precision, clean, fast, textbook perfect. She nodded once. "Textbook indeed. Now let me show you the 7 fatal flaws in your approach." For 10 minutes, she dismantled his performance with surgical accuracy angles. Blind spots, vulnerabilities no manual mentioned. Smirks vanished. Davenport's jaw tightened. As she gestured, her sleeve slipped, revealing a jagged scar circling her wrist. She adjusted quickly, but Calloway noticed. Theory wasn't the only thing she carried. Day after day, Thorne trained them not in strength or speed, but in perception, anchoring bias, availability heuristics, the lethal mistakes born from overconfidence. Davenport grew restless. "We need to be stronger, faster, more aggressive," he argued. "That's what keeps us alive." Her reply landed like a blade wrapped in silk. "The strongest operator I ever knew died because he couldn't adapt." The word "knew" silenced the room. Then came sensory manipulation drills, lights, sounds, illusions that disoriented even the elite. Within minutes, SEAL candidates staggered like rookies. "This isn't training," Davenport muttered. "Ramadi, 2012, Thorne said evenly. 3 operators killed. Insurgents used these exact tactics. Strength couldn't save them. This would have..." Silence fell again. By the 3rd week, resentment thickened. A cruel caricature appeared on the whiteboard, a frail professor dragged off by real soldiers. Thorne erased it without comment. Before class, Calloway approached her. "Ma'am, not everyone thinks this is a joke." She offered a faint smile. "They will." That day, every team failed the drills, even Davenport's. "This was designed to fail," she told them. "Your bodies are trained. Your minds aren't. That changes now." "This is a waste of time," Davenport snapped. "In Kandahar," she said quietly, "I watched a man die because he thought exactly like you." Something cracked. 3 weeks in, the classroom felt like a battlefield, pride and tension replacing bullets and mud. Thorne dissected Davenport's latest simulation. "Technically correct," she said, "fatally flawed. That entry pattern creates a funnel. In Fallujah, it killed 4 operators." "This isn't learned from books," Davenport snapped. "These tactics were tested by real operators."
Oh.
Her marker clicked. A Liskari district. Upper floor crossfire. 7 seconds after breach, your team would be dead. "I know because I've seen it." Too specific. Calloway noticed the way she touched her side when speaking of chest wounds. Then she described the sensory distortions of a first kill, sound warping, color sharpening, calm, clinical, impossible to fake. How would you know what it feels like to take a life? Davenport barked. She didn't flinch. Page 94 covers neurological combat stress. Let's continue. After class, Davenport remained. He loomed over her desk. You're teaching war to men who will actually fight. You've never seen combat. That makes you a liability. Leadership isn't about strength, she said calmly. It's about knowing when strength fails. Something in him snapped. In one violent motion, he slammed her against the wall, hand at her throat. Gasps echoed. This is combat, Professor, he snarled. For one heartbeat, she didn't resist. Then the professor vanished. Her movements were a blur, grip broken, arm twisted, body driven down. A sickening pop echoed as Davenport's shoulder dislocated. Seconds later, their strongest man was face down, immobilized beneath her knee. The door opened. Commander Blackwood stepped in. At ease, Major. Major Thorne released Davenport and stood, adjusting her sleeve. Gentlemen, Blackwood said, this is Major Elaine Thorne. Naval Special Warfare Development Group, call sign Wraith. 15 years operational experience, Silver Star, Purple Heart, sole survivor of Operation Obsidian Shield. A legend now standing before them. Davenport sat broken, arm useless, certainty gone. Strength alone isn't enough anymore, Blackwood finished. Learn that or you won't last. Eyes lowered. Pride crushed. Major Thorne straightened. Class dismissed. The men filed out in silence. Calloway lingered, looking back at her not as a professor, but as a warrior. The scars, the stories, the certainty. Suddenly, everything made sense. Wraith wasn't an outsider teaching theory. She was one of them the following morning. The classroom sat empty save for Commander Blackwood. Training is suspended for 24 hours, he said flatly. The men need time to process. Davenport is under review. His career may be finished. Thorne calmly set down her papers. He acted on assumptions, dangerous ones, but genuine. Sometimes pain is the only teacher. You could have neutralized him without injury, Blackwood replied carefully. Yes, she agreed. But he needed to feel the cost of arrogance. That evening, she found Davenport in the medical bay, his shoulder bound in a sling. He didn't look up. They're separating me, he muttered. Assaulting an instructor? I'm done. She studied him. Is that what you want? He looked up, stunned. What I want doesn't matter. I crossed the line. It matters to me, she said quietly. Because I haven't signed off on your paperwork yet? Confusion crossed his face. Why not? I attacked you. You did, she acknowledged. Because you believed I was a civilian academic teaching ideas that could get your men killed. Misguided but rooted in loyalty. She met his eyes. That instinct is the foundation of leadership. The problem wasn't protection. It was assumption. His voice broke. So what happens now? That depends on you. You can leave with your pride intact and your ignorance unchallenged. Or you can stay and learn what real strength demands. Mental as well as physical. Davenport stared at the floor, then back at her. I was wrong. About you. About combat. I want to learn. She nodded once. Training resumes at 0800. Don't be late. The next morning, the atmosphere had transformed. Every recruit stood at attention, respect burning where scorn once lived. Even Davenport, arm in a sling, stood tall. Seats, she said simply. Questions followed. Is it true you were the sole survivor of Obsidian Shield? Yes. My team was ambushed. 7 operators lost. I extracted with critical intelligence, and your scars? Kandahar, captured, tortured, permanent nerve damage. The room fell silent. Finally, Davenport raised his hand. His voice was softer now. Major, you said the strongest operator you ever knew died because he couldn't adapt. Who was he? She held his gaze. Your father, Chief Garrett Davenport. The air vanished from the room. He saved my life twice before losing his own, she continued. Stronger than 10 men? But when injury took that strength, he couldn't adapt. That cost him everything. Davenport's face drained of color. My father. Yes. And that's why I'm here. Strength alone isn't survival. Adaptation is. From that moment on, doubt vanished. The classroom, once poisoned by skepticism, now burned with reverence. The weeks that followed reshaped them. Lectures became discipline. Discipline became mastery. Her lessons carried the weight of blood paid and lives lost. They no longer saw her as a lecturer, but as a warrior who had earned every word. Davenport transformed the most. No longer defiant, he listened intensely. He asked questions, volunteered first, accepted limitation without ego. If the strongest among them could shed pride, so could the rest. Practical chaos replaced theory blindfolded obstacle courses, simulated injuries, lost weapons, dead radios, unexpected failures. Each time, Thorne reminded them, strength means nothing if the mind collapses. They learned to fight disoriented, exhausted, injured. Slowly, instinct gave way to strategy. One night, Blackwood observed as Thorne called out over the course, primary weapon lost, dominant arm compromised, hostiles approaching, civilians in tow. Your move? When she turned to Davenport, his response came instantly, not brute force, but misdirection, terrain, psychological pressure. She nodded. Excellent. You've learned to weaponize perception. Blackwood understood what he was witnessing. Transformation. A month later, Davenport trained alone late at night, systems built around his injury. Adaptation isn't optional, he said simply. Evaluation day arrived, a 6-hour gauntlet meant to break both body and mind. Exhaustion, equipment failure, leadership shifts, chaos. This time they adapted. Leadership rotated seamlessly. Weakness was compensated. The unit moved as one organism. When Davenport faltered, he passed command without hesitation. When others wavered, someone else stepped forward. They finished not unbroken, but unshaken. Today, Thorne told them, you proved that strength without thought is wasted. Adaptation will bring you home when your body fails. Blackwood declared the program permanent. Graduation came 6 months later. Thorne stood in the shadows as tridents were placed, content unseen. When Davenport stepped forward, Blackwood's voice carried. This man exemplifies innovation, humility, and leadership, forged in adversity. Davenport searched the crowd and met her eyes. A nod passed between them, respect earned through pain. As she tried to slip away, the operators formed a line. One by one, they saluted. Silent, absolute. Davenport stood last. Thank you, Major. You taught us that real strength is adaptation. She returned the salute. Remember it when everything else fails. It will bring you home. As she left the base beneath a setting sun, Blackwood spoke quietly. You changed their futures. She nodded. Teaching them may have been my most important mission. They had entered believing muscle was everything. They left knowing the mind was the true weapon, and that truth would save lives.